everyone, it's Avarice, and I'm going to be building a Cardfight Vanguard deck today, and I will be using the clan Aqua. Quite a while back we had a wonderful little ride chain, the Ripple series within Aqua, and recently it just got a boost because Bushiroad decided that it was a cool ride chain, and I agree with them, honestly. It was one of my favorite ride chains of all time, outside of, the Pacifica one in Bermuda Triangle, which I actually don't know if that has anything for it. But Ripple does, so we're going to be making a new and improved Ripple deck. As you can see, I am using the Cardfight area. I will have a link below to it in the description. It's wonderful for deck building and testing if you don't want to spend the money on the actual cards, but then once you have a deck that you really like and you enjoy playing, you can go out and build it in real life and use it in tournaments if you have the money for it. Yeah, because I have the money for it. No, I don't. That's a lie. Alright, and to the deck editor. So I already have it open, and I have named this the Aqua Ripple of Rebirth, because honestly, that's basically what it is. You get to do the ride chain, and then the standing power of this clan is just through the roof. I love the turn base of Aqua. It's not my main clan, but I have been playing it for quite a while, and I don't want to say I'm the best at doing the ripples or Aqua, but I'm pretty decent with them, and so I figured this would be a good clan to start with. Alright, so the first card you're going to want to put in your deck is, of course, the beginning Ripple Alecs. Don't have more than one of him in your deck. It's really pointless. I know some people run more than one starter. In one of my decks, I actually run two of the same starter, but that's because her skill can be used more than once. Alecs, there's really no point in running any more than one of him. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run one Alecs, and I'll get back to the triggers, because those usually go at the end of the deck. So the next one you're going to want to put in, of course, is the Silent Ripple Sotirio. He is part of the ride chain. His skill is nice. That, you know, of course, he becomes an 8,000, as all ride chains do. But then when Baorus rides him, which is the next card in the ride chain, you can look at 7 cards from the top of your deck. Oh, no, I'm sorry. When a grade 2 other than Baorus rides him, then you get to choose another card named Baorus from the top 7 cards of your deck, ride it, so that you can continue your ride chain. I actually haven't seen other ride chains do this, and it's really helpful because when you don't have your ride chain done, it just screws up the entire finale, especially with the grades 0 or 1 and 2 cards. Next card, of course, is the Rising Ripple Baorus. Also, just as a note, because I'm using Cardfight area, some of the cards are not the same name as they are in real life, so I will also be putting the names. I'll be putting the deck build as well as the actual names of the cards in real life in the description, because that's going to be kind of hard when you're looking for it, and it's like, oh, this card doesn't exist. What is the Luna Square Impact? I've never seen a card named Luna Square Impact. Yeah, well, it's called Impact of Luna Square, and it does that. It's just translations, because a lot of these cards are translated before they come out in English. It's just something you deal with. Alright, so that's Baorus. And then we go to the grade 3s. And the reason I don't usually do this, I usually do 0, 1, 2, 3 trigger. But I'm doing it this way because for this, it's really good to get your ride changes done first so you have that cemented. Next card you're going to want to put in is the Breaking Ripple Miltiadis. When I saw this card came out, oh my god, it's freaking incredible, to be honest. I'll be going over skills later. Right now this is just build set. Alright, so then you're going to want, of course, put in the Legion Mate, which is the Roaring Ripple Genovious. Again, not his name in real life, I believe, but yes, Genovious and Miltiadis, you're always going to want to have those in your deck. I don't run any more grade 3s, because those are the only grade 3s that I know of that have Ripple in their name. There may be others, but let's be honest, Miltiadis is really the only Ripple that you kind of need, except for Genovious, of course, because one's the Legion Mate, but also that you can, because he's a grade 3 and he has a Vanguard skill, you can use his skill as well as Miltiadis' skill. So when you put these two together, they make a really, really powerful combination, but I'll get into that more later. And then there's your strides. Strides, actually I lied. I'm not going to be doing triggers last. I'm going to be doing strides last. Because those are, of course, your most powerful cards. And we'll be going through those last. So, now, the rest of your deck. Okay. So, of course, the one Alex, and then your four Sotirio, or Sotirio, I suppose is his name. Again, that's not his name in real life. I believe there's a typo in there somewhere, because that name is ungodly hard to say, even for Aqua Force. So Alex's skill is that he's just your typical ride chain starter. When Sotirio rides him, you get to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and either search for a Baorus or a Genovious. This is really nice because then if you don't have the cards in your hand, it's another last-ditch effort. It has happened to me where I have Genovious already in my hand and I search and I get another Genovious and Baorus is nowhere to be found. If that happens, it used to be that you just, get screwed over because if you don't get a Baorus, then your ride chain is screwed up and you don't get the power from Genovious. However, that is no longer a problem because of one awesome card. I will complain about him so much during a Vanguard match, but honestly, he is the saving grace, and that is the Flashing Ripple Odysseus. This freaking card. I have never seen another card with this skill. There might be in Vanguard. I do not know every card in Vanguard, I am sad to say. But Odysseus is incredible. His skill is that he's wonderful for a ride chain because let's say you have some other grade 2, let's say. Okay, so you have Sotirio, and then you search for a Baorus from Alecs, and you just can't find him, and you get to your grade 2, and you have another grade 2 in your hand, and you ride it, but it's not Baorus. Now your ride chain's screwed up. That's where Odysseus comes in. Odysseus' skill is amazing, because what you can do is you put him on rearguard, and his skill is an act. So it's not just when he's placed, you can do this every single time, meaning ride chain really isn't a problem anymore as long as you have him on rearguard circle and you have another rearguard on your field, which isn't hard. Even if it's a last-ditch effort, you can just put any really card you want, even if it's a trigger, on your rearguard circle and activate his skill. And his skill is that you can put one of your other rearguards to your soul and search your deck for up to one card with Ripple in its name and ride it as your Vanguard. The only thing is it has to be the same grade, but that's okay, honestly, because I have gotten to the position where I have Alecs, and I have the rest of my ride chain, but I'm missing Sotirio. So what I do is, I ride another one of my grade 1s. As you can see, I have a couple other ones in this deck, and I ride that, and then I call Odysseus to rearguard. Because the nice thing is that when you ride a card other than Sotirio on Alecs, Alecs becomes Forerunner and he goes to your rearguard circle. So what Odysseus does is you put Alecs in your soul, search for Sotirio, ride him as Vanguard, but what's really nice about Odysseus also is that you choose a card from your soul and call it to rearguard. And it gets 2,000 power till the end of the turn. My favorite combo for this is Odysseus, Sotirio, and Assassinate Sailor. Assassinate Sailor is my favorite rearguard to have in this deck behind your Vanguard. Because at some point or another, your Vanguard is going to hit. It has to. The only problem with Assassinate Sailor, and the reason I only run 2 of her, I cannot tell with Vanguard, and it's dangerous to try. Problem with Assassinate Sailor is that if you have, it has to be the 4th turn of the battle, and in early game, that's very hard to do. It is possible, but this deck is not really made for early game stands, so that's the only thing that you have to be careful of. But once you get into late game, Assassinate Sailor is priceless to have, because it's either going to force your opponent to guard your Vanguard because they don't want to lose their rearguards, or they're going to take out a rearguard if it's 4th turn or more. So my favorite for this is that you ride Assassinate Sailor on Alecs, but you have to, of course, have Odysseus. Then you have Odysseus, call him to rearguard, search your deck for Sotirio, and then call Assassinate Sailor behind your Vanguard with plus 2,000 power. you are now sitting at 17,000 power at your Vanguard, and you have another rear guard which you can put a card behind or just attack if you are at grade 1. This combo isn't always going to happen, and if you don't have Odysseus, don't try to pull it off. Like, if you have Sotirio, do that. Because honestly, what even you can do is, for some reason, if you'd want to, you can still do it with Odysseus, even if you have Sotirio. The only problem with that is that you won't have Alecs as your rear guard, so you have to put another one in your soul because you can't use Odysseus to put him in your soul. So I would really only do it as a last-ditch effort, but at the same time, it's a really powerful combo if you can pull it off. And then the perfect guard I run is Guardian of the Seas, Plato. Of course, run 4 of him because he has that wonderful new ability for Sentinels that you can flip a card up in your damage zone if there's another one of him in the drop. It just is a general rule of Vanguard. Don't run a grade 1, or don't run a grade 1, oh my god. Don't run a Sentinel as your main Vanguard if you can avoid it, because it kind of negates the purpose. Like, the rest of the cards, they can kind of be used, but Sentinels usually are 6,000 power. Add that to the fact that they have the wonderful Sentinel Perfect Guard, or I suppose Quintet Wall ability, and now you can't use that because that can only be used in your hand. But that's just a rule of Vanguard, not for this deck really. This is just one of those things. Alright, so there's Platon, and so grade 1 lineup, just to recap, is 2 Assassinate Sailors, 3 Flashing Ripple Odysseus. If you want to run another one of him and forego one of your grade 2s, that's also fine, because Odysseus really is a wonderful card to have. I run 3 of him, and I've usually been able to get away with it. But if you don't, then that's fine. The more the merrier, I always say. Okay, and then 4 Guardian of the Seas Platon, perfect guards galore, and 4 Silent Ripple Sotlios, or whatever his name is in real life, which I will have up later, and I don't know off the top of my head right now. Alright, grade 2s. Of course, Baorus. Love Baorus. His skill requires you to have Sotirio in the soul. So what you can do is that you have Baorus, and when his attack hits, if you have Sotirio in the soul, you can choose one of your other Aqua Force cards and stand it. This is really awesome. It is a Vanguard ability, so you can't use this once it's on rear guard. That would be extremely overpowered. But it's really nice just for that 1 attack, or 2 if you're stuck at grade 3. It is possible to get stuck at grade 3 in this deck because there are no G3 searchers. I didn't really see the point in having them because Bride Chain. And that's kind of Alex's thing anyways, that you can try to search for grade 3s at the beginning. The only problem is that you can't search for Miltiadis because Alecs came out long before Miltiadis did, and so he, I don't think, ever got a reprint to include Miltiadis, so that's the only card you're going to watch out for. But if you're stuck at Genovious for a while, it's not the end of the world. He does have some nice skills that you can take advantage of. But that's Baorus, and he's nice, but you're of course going to want to have another rear guard, but there's plenty of G2 rear guards. Again, I don't have a ton of them, and I don't have any vanillas in this deck because I didn't see the point of having vanillas in this deck. It's not really a power-based deck, and those are really the only ones that do use vanillas, or if you have just a lack of cards. So the other cards that I will run are the Blue Storm Marine General Ianis. Ianis, there's just a running joke with me that if you try to attack my Ianis, I will, like, beat you to death, because this was one of my favorite cards at one time. His skill is fairly simple. If it hits a Vanguard and it's the 3rd battle or more of the turn, draw a card, but Ianis is really the draw power of this deck, because I don't run any draw triggers with it. Aqua Force is not really a draw-heavy deck, which is dangerous if you're going up against something like Kagero, or other cards where it just wipes out your hand. And so you want to have cards like Ianis to help with your draw power. Alright, so that was Ianis. Next card we are going to want to add is Marine General of Teardrop, Carlos. Again, probably not his real name. Sounds a little odd, but skill's the same. When he adds a Vanguard, if you can choose a card in your damage zone, turn it face up. This deck is not extremely counterblast heavy, but it can get there once you start racking up your grade 3 abilities, especially with Genovious, who I believe is counterblast 2. So you can only use him so many times. Carlos is a nice card to have because you can turn him face up, and him and Platon are really the only cards in this deck that can turn cards face up, I believe, which is can be a problem, but as long as you mind your counterblasts, it shouldn't be too bad. That's really all there is for Carlos. He's just nice because you don't want to run out of counterblasts. In certain decks, it's more problematic than others. This one, you can still get along pretty well if you don't have any counterblasts left, plus kill triggers. Those are nice as well. The next card we're going to want to add is Turbulent Ripple Lebese. I laugh at this one because my friend and we will always have a war over how to say his name. Every time we play Vanguard, he will always say Lapis, and I immediately correct him. Lebese, really, his only thing is that he's nice to go third. There'll always be a battle between him and Ianis, I say, of going third, unless you have Baorus. Honestly, between Lebese, Baorus, and Ianis, if you have those three all into your grade 2 at the same time, it is fantastic to have. Because what you can do is that you attack with Lebese, and his skill doesn't activate, but then you can attack with Baorus. You use Baorus' skill, but that's, of course, only if it hits. And then you get to turn, then Lebese stands back up. You attack with Ianis, it's third turn or more. And between Ianis and Baorus, it's going to have to hit once, so you're either going to get to draw a card, or you get to stand Lebese. Plus, there's Lebese himself, and if you do get to stand, then you get 4 attacks in one turn. Like I said, it is possible to get 4 in early game. That's really hard. I don't think Assassinate Sailor would help you much in this situation, especially if she's behind your Vanguard. But you can pull it off. It is possible. And these 3 are just really nice combo to have. Ianis is always going to keep your opponent on guard because, of course, they don't want you to have more cards in your hand. But they're not always going to guard Ianis, and he is nice for draw power. And then Lebese is awesome for power because he's already at 9,000. And all you really need is 2 other units with Ripple in their name to be rested, and he gets the plus 3,000. It's not quite as much as, like, if you have Vanguard with Ripple in its name, then you get 3,000 power. I don't believe there's a card like that. If there is, somebody please tell me so that I can replace Lebese with it, because as much as I love Lebese, that's way more convenient. Because your Vanguard will almost always have Ripple in its name. I don't see why you wouldn't, unless you get screwed over by your ride chain. So, that's my grade 2 lineup. Just to recap, 3 Blue Storm Marine General Ianis, 2 Marine General of the Teardrop Carlos, probably not his name, 4 Rising Ripple Baorus, and then 3 Turbulent Ripple Lebese. Still loving that Ripple support. Just as a side note, this card isn't in the deck, but if you ever make an Aqua Force deck and you want heavy stand power, Tidal Assault, I happen to see him. He's really good. I don't use him in this deck because, again, the stand power is pretty much good enough with your Vanguard, and Baorus especially. But he's really nice to have if you need to get to that 4th turn or more, and you don't have the stride abilities or the rear guard abilities to do it. Actually, I might start running Tidal Assault. I don't think I will yet, but he can be really nice to have. And then we move into our grade 3s, who I've already gone over, but I will now kind of go into their skills. Your main grade 3, of course, is going to be the Breaking Ripple Miltiadis. Also probably not his name. His skill is that... Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is actually his second skill, which is when he's placed on Vanguard. This is not my favorite grade 3 skill because it does require you to put cards in your drop zone. And since it's not Grand Blue, it doesn't really help you. But his thing is that you get to counterblast 1 when he's put on Vanguard. You pay the cost, you look at the 3 cards from the top of your deck, and you get to search for 1 card from a Ripple in a minute. I can speak. Search for 1 card with Ripple among them, reveal it to your opponent, put it to your hand. And you have to put the rest of the cards in your drop. Now, usually you think, oh, well, what's the point of this? All of the ripples. You've probably already had, like, what you need by now. Actually, there is one ripple that this is awesome for. And that is the other one, which is Genovious, who I will get to in a second. Then, Miltiadis' Legion skill is quite possibly one of my favorite Legion skills ever, outside of, Kagero's Dragonic Overlord, the X, because the X is just overpowered and we all know it, but we love it anyways. But Miltiadis, his skill is that when he's in Legion, and you basically you need a full field for this to activate totally, but it still works even if you are missing a couple cards. You just want to at least have a completed front row or back row, because that's when this really comes into play. And his skill is that if the number of your rest units in the front row is 3 or more, you get to choose one of your rear guards and stand it, and then you get to countercharge 1. He has the other countercharge ability, which is really nice because him and Carlos put together, plus your Platon, you get to kind of avoid the heavy counterblasts, which is really nice considering Genovious' skill. So those two kind of balance each other out. And also you get to stand, like I said, standing abilities in this off the charts. And then if the number of units in your back row is 3 or more, you get to draw a card. He's basically, like, I will always think of Miltiadis as the love child between Carlos and Ianis, because he is their 2 skills merged together. And Baorus, honestly, like, he's your 3 best grade 3s put into one card, and it's absolutely incredible because there's no cost to this skill. So you can use it whenever you want, and it's fantastic. And then, of course, his Legion mate is the original grade 3 for the ripples, which is Genovious. Like I said, Genovious' skill is a limit break, and it is Counterblast 2, and it's also a Persona Blast, so you have to have another Genovious in your hand and discard it. Now, usually this would be hard, but the nice thing is about Miltiadis is that skill when he's placed on Vanguard. You get to Counterblast 1 and search for a card with ripple in your name. Now, I would only do this if you don't have another Genovious in your hand, or if you desperately need stuff to stride with, because this deck does not run the stride helper. You can add that in there if you want. You just have to make sure you balance it out. I don't, because I feel like I need my other cards a bit more. The only one I would really mess with is Lebese and Ianis. I guess take 2 of them out and maybe put in 2 of your stride helpers. I wouldn't mess with your other cards too much. Maybe 1 Assassinate Sailor. But if you run, and then you would have 3 stride helpers, but that's only, I'd say, if you really want to stride. This is not a stride-heavy deck. This is much more using Legion skills. There are no cards in this deck that have Generation Break, as far as I know. So stride is really more of a backseat kind of thing in this deck, and I wouldn't use that as your main focus. There are much better cards in Aqua Force to do stride with. Alright, so you've got Miltiadis, and then Genovious. Right. Genovious' skill. Love his skill. I used to kind of not like him because, of course, the 10,000 power. But the nice thing about him is that if you have Rising Ripple Baorus in your soul, he gets a plus 10,000 power. But here's the thing. That skill is a Vanguard skill, so even when you are maining your Vanguard as Miltiadis, Genovious' skill of plus 1,000 power is still a thing, so really you're at a 22,000 power Vanguard, and it's great as long as you have Baorus in your soul, of course. So, Genovious, his main skill, his limit break, is that you can blast 2, Persona Blast 1 of him. For those who don't know, Persona Blast is when you take a copy of the same card, same name, and put it to your drop zone, and then you can activate the skill. And it's really amazing because at the end of the battle that he attacked Vanguard, it doesn't even need to hit. If you have 3 rested units in your front row, you get to stand all of your Aqua Force rear guards. The only thing that I'm questioning it is, I have a feeling it's supposed to say 3 or more, and the reason it doesn't is because this was before Legion was a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that's supposed to say 3 or more, now that you would technically have 4 rested units in your Vanguard. Otherwise, this skill is extremely limiting. But they didn't really factor in Legion at that point, and again, I don't think he ever got a reprint. So that's the one thing you have to be careful about Genovious. But his is great, Counterblast 2, and then you don't get to stand your Vanguard, but you do get to stand your rear guards, and that's great because now you have the 4 or more, and that also means that if you have Ianis and Lebese, you get to use them again, Carlos, all of your rear guards, and if you happen to have Assassinate Sailor as your rear guards, then that card also activates. Alright, now we are going to do triggers. Yes, I'm saving Stride for last because, well, I don't know. Strides just are. Oh, there's Wavefront Sailor. I don't know why. There just is. Alright, so heal trigger I run. You can run any heal trigger you want, honestly. I still run Medical Officer of the Rainbow Elixir. You don't have to run her. You can run Kitchen Sailor or Medical Officer of the Blue Storm Fleet. There is no particular reason that I run her other than at the time that was the heal trigger I had, and I just never changed it. I'll change up my heal triggers every once in a while, but they're all vanilla. None of them have any skills, so you can use literally whatever you want. My 2 critical triggers I use, of course, is the Demise, Ripple, Orest. Probably not his name either. His is awesome because you get to put him at the bottom of your deck, and then at the end of the battle that he boosted, if you have 2 or more rested units with Ripple in its name, you can pay the cost. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, choose one from Ripple, reveal it to your opponent, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So now you have a critical trigger in your deck again, as well as having another Ripple, which is fantastic if you want to do Genovious, or if you want to Stride, or really just for anything, because a lot of these cards do have Ripple in their name. Odysseus, this is a great way to get him into your hand. So he's great. What would kind of be an obnoxious thing is if you put another Orest in your hand, which you can do. It is not illegal. It doesn't say other than Orest, so if you want, you could do that and then use your skill again. But that's only if you're really desperate, I'd say. The other critical trigger I run is Supersonic Sailor. I never have used his skill, to be honest, but it's a last ditch kind of thing. You get to put him in your soul, choose a card from your damage zone, turn it face up. I think this is more counter-charge heavy than it is counter-blast heavy, now that I think about it. Like I said, I've never had to use Supersonic skill in all of the times that I've played this deck, but if you really are desperate for counter-charging, and you just absolutely need that second counter-blast, or first counter-blast, or whatever, he's great to have. You can just turn it face up, really no cost, other than putting him into your soul. The stand trigger I run is Alekbors. I lied. There is 1 Generation Break card in this deck, and that's him. Reason I like him, you can also put him back to your deck. I usually tend to go for the cards that you can put back into your deck because that's like the best thing to do for triggers. One of the reasons why Angel Feather and Oracle Think Tank will always be amazing clans to me is because their heal triggers can go back to their deck, which I see as absolutely invaluable. It is so amazing to have those. I don't know if invaluable was the right word, by the way. I think I just screwed that up. Whatever. But for these 2, your critical and your stand can go back to your deck, plus the fact that you're running Legion. So if they end up in your drop zone because you're guarding and you haven't Legioned yet, you can just put them straight back into your deck through that, which is nice. I would mainly use that for heal triggers, since you can put Alekbors and Orest back into your deck through their own skills. So I wouldn't focus on them, but Supersonic and Elixir, I would mainly focus on putting those 2 back into your deck. Anyway, Alekbors' skill, to define it, is that at the end of the battle that he attacked, you can choose one of your rear guards, exchange the position with this unit, and then return it to your deck. But the state of the card doesn't change. So, like, if you boosted with a card behind Alekbors, it wouldn't turn stand when you change the positions, which is the only problem. But then if you just attack with him, now you have 1 turn done, and you can get to 4 turns very easily. Alright, so that was my trigger lineup. Again, just to go over, I'm going to go with 4 Demise Ripple Orest and 4 Supersonic Sailor as your critical triggers. By the way, Supersonic Sailor, extremely fun to say. Don't know why I had to point that out, but I did. 4 Officer Cadet Alekbors as your stand, and then 4 heal trigger. The only thing that I would say, as a personal preference, is if you want to run more stands than 4, you can. Also, if you want to run draw power, the only thing that I would say, the reason, this is one of the only decks that I run stand in, simply because Aqua Force is all about turn base, and usually I will not run stands at all because, to be honest, I don't care for them. But in this deck, I would definitely say run stands, even though you have the stand power of Genovious, because you're not going to be able to activate Genovious every single turn. But with Alekbors, as long as you have Generation Break, at least one, you can get him back into your deck. He's really the only Generation Break card, so the only real reason to stride is to activate his ability, or if you want the extra power, skills, etc. So that was my trigger lineup, and now to the fun part, strides! Okay, so gotta go through all these cards, and strides. Okay, first stride you're gonna want to run is Marine General of Heavenly Scale, Tidal Boar Dragon. This is your, it's ironic to say early game because you don't run strides in your early game, this is not how it works, but I guess as your first stride, quote, quote, you would want to use Tidal Boar Dragon, because that's when an attack hits Vanguard, and if your opponent's at 5 damage, it's not gonna hit. And if it does, then, well, that's the end of the game, you don't really get to use his skill. So when the attack hits a Vanguard, if it's a 3rd battle or more, you get to draw a card, and then choose one card from your hand, call it to rearguard. Again, turn base, nice. The only thing that I don't really get with Tidal Boar is that, there's really, I'm sure there are some cards in this deck where when you place to rearguard, you get to stand a Vanguard, or not stand your Vanguard, stand one of your other rearguards. Really, I use him more for the draw power than calling stuff to rearguard, because if it's the 3rd turn or more, you're going to have basically 3 cards there, and they're all going to be attacked. The only thing would be is that if you have a stand trigger, and now you have an unboosted grade 2, or grade 3 or grade 1, I suppose, but unboosted card in your front row, then you can call something to rearguard, and that would be kind of nice. But since you can't really switch positions, it's a little bit dangerous. Oh dear, that's a notification. Cut that. Alright. Next card you're going to want to run, Marine General of Sky and Earth Lambros. I only run 2 of him. If he was a normal card, I would run 3 and only 1 Tidal Boar. He's nice. He's one of the really, really old strides. I say old strides. They haven't been out that long. Yes, they have. But either way, Lambros, if you play Aqua Force, you probably know his skill by now. When he attacks, if it's the 4th turn or more, pay the cost, 2 of your rearguards and stand them. And then if, I say G-Break 2, if you have 2 or more. Oh no, it's not G-Break 2, I'm sorry. Because it has to be in your G-zone, so technically it would be G-Break 3. Then the Stood units get plus 10,000 power. I know people think that he's, like, outdated. I will always say Lambros is incredible, because stand power is awesome. And plus that 10,000 boost as long as you have some cards in your Z-zone. So honestly, all you really need is to use your Tidal Boar twice, or your other stride, and then use Lambros, and there. I don't run 4 of him. To be honest, I'm not sure why. I might change it so that I do. Because I think the other one is Persona Flip. But Lambros, really nice. 4th turn or more is the only thing, so what you're going to want to do is definitely have Alex pose for this one. Make sure you have Alex pose either in your hand or on your field before you use Lambros, because otherwise I don't know how you're going to be able to get to turn 4. That's the only thing. And that is the one problem with this deck. So like I said, if you want to run Tidal Assault for his skill of being able to stand with minus 5,000 power, I wouldn't say no, but like I said, since this isn't a stride-heavy deck, and you're really only going to be using Lambros once because of the fact that you have to turn another copy of him face up, I wouldn't worry about it, but that's, again, a personal thing, and feel free to edit that. Alright, then the last stride is the main Ripple stride, which is the Torrential Prodromos. Considering all the other Ripple support, I was slightly disappointed with Prodromos. for the first thing that disappointed me, it was that it has to hit a Vanguard. So, that being said, you have to make the decision. This depends on how many rear guards you have. If you have, like, 1 or 2 rear guards, don't use Tidal as your starting card. Use Prodromos. The reason why is that you have to flip one of him face up, which I say is silly because it's a when hits thing, so there's already that. And then you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, search for 2 with Ripple in their name, and call them to separate rearguard circles. This is a really nice way to get cards on your field. Like, this is kind of Royal Paladin BS right here. Don't get me wrong, love Royal Paladin, but my god, their superior calling is ugh. Alright, so when you have that, you can get some rear guards on your field, and then the next card you could use definitely is Tidal, because now you're going to have the ability to get 3 on your field. Or you can just go straight into Lambros your next turn, because you're going to have 2 face up in your G-Zone because of Prodromos. And if Prodromos doesn't hit, well, now you have an extra Prodromos, so you can try him again. You can try Tidal. I wouldn't go to Lambros after that because you're only going to have 1 face up in your G-Zone. I have actually made that mistake before, and it is embarrassing. Because, you know, you get ready, you're doing Lambros' skill, you only have 1 face up in the G-Zone. Oh yeah, that's right. Prodromos didn't work. That's the only real problem I have with him. Otherwise, I'd say he's a pretty awesome grade 4 Stride unit. I just realized how fast I'm talking, and I apologize if people had a hard time understanding me. I tend to do that. Fun fact about my little screencast-o-matic here. It can only record in 15-minute increments, so at some points there might be, like, gaping holes in my audio where I had to stop recording. That has nothing to do with this deck, by the way. It's just a little fun fact. Yeah, 15-minute increments. Alright, so that is Ripple of Rebirth. Which, I don't know, you might find a stupid or corny name. I'm stupid and corny. It's okay. So, those are the cards that you're going to want to use if you decide on this deck. Feel free to edit and alter the deck as you see fit, but this is the deck build that I have working for me, and if you want to do Aqua Force, this is, I'd say, a pretty decent deck build. I'm going to be doing more deck builds in the future. I'm not going to put a timestamp on it by saying, oh, I'll do it once a week, because I can't promise that. But this is my first deck build of the channel. And I am going to be focusing mainly on Cardfight Vanguard, but I will also be doing some deck builds for Future Card Buddy Fight and Battle Spirits. Battle Spirits is not actually in the US physically, and deck builds are going to be very interesting because I don't actually have an area for it and I have to use a completely different server. So those might be a little bit confusing, but it'll all work out. And at the end of the day, you know, it's all about what you like, and if there are some things in this deck that you don't care for, feel free to change them to how you see fit. This deck actually might be a little bit outdated because I think I made it before the latest update. The other thing that I want to make sure that I have a disclaimer on, a couple of disclaimers actually. The first one is the classic one, you know, don't own Vanguard, not trying to make any money off of this, yada yada yada. But the second one, this deck was made for purely online purposes. I would not advise you to go out and buy every single one of these cards because Miltiadis, I know for a fact, is freaking expensive. A lot of the decks that I will make are strictly online, and I personally have not made them in real life. I do know that they work because I play them frequently, but the only problem is that they are not financially sound, and you will spend a lot of money on cards. So if you want to do that, I would say make sure that you know your deck. Test it out on stuff like Cardfight area. A lot of times get it exactly the way you want it before you start buying your cards. Also, make sure you look into trial decks and booster packs to see if you can get a base there, because I know that where I'm at, trial decks are $20. Starter decks are $20, and you can base it off there. I don't believe there's a Ripple starter deck yet, but for a lot of the decks that I will build, there are. And for some of the deck builds that I do, I will show you how to get a trial deck or a starter deck, whatever you want to call it, and then go from there and build off of it through cards within booster packs or just cards you buy singularly, because that is sometimes a lot better than buying every card individually. I know one of my favorite cards of all time, Venus Lucier in Pale Moon. She's like $42 per card, and that's absolutely insane. But she's a pretty cool card, I'll be honest. But I mean, let's be real here. That's not very financially sound. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked my deck build, and subscribe if you want. Like my channel if you would like to see more of these deck builds, and I will eventually also do playthroughs of my deck, which is going to be absolutely hilarious, because the funny thing is that whenever I play my decks, they work so beautifully in practice, but then when I actually play them, you may never build another one of my decks again, because, as it turns out, I'm not actually very good at this game. So they're mostly going to be deck builds, some playthroughs, and eventually I may do some Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff once I actually, like, know how to do that game. It's ironic, the most well-known card game of this type, aside, I think, outside of Magic, is the one I really don't know how to play, and I can't build decks worth crap for it. Then again, I've also never really tried. So, Cardfight, Buddy Fight, Battle Spirits. Hopefully you will come watch more of my videos in the future, and until then, have fun!